Welcome into the Pugs and Parker evening show. I am Pugs Moran. It's the second of two streams that I do every day. The first one I do is called High Noon. That comes on at noon. Well, that's why we call it that. High Noon. Get it? And it's all about hot topics, current events, whatever it is that's happening in the world. We cover it, rip and read style. I try to give you a nice little cheat sheet on all the things that are happening in the world so that you're not running around having people coming up to you going, hey, did you hear about? And you can say, actually, yeah, I did, because that's one of the kinds of things that Pugs talks about every day, Monday through Friday on High Noon. It's not what we do here. This is more conversational. We chop it up every night. Me and my friend, James Parker. Where's Parker? Why ain't the screen getting doubled up? Parker. How come you're not being activated? Where are you? Oh, let's see. E, where's E? There you go. All right. I don't know what was happening. No idea. Do I have to, what is he doing? What's going on with E, Parker?
I don't know. What is he doing?
He looks like a bug. He's doing like a bug thing at this point.
How many things does he have on his head?
I don't know. Over under 3.
Is those ski goggles? Is that what we're looking at?
It looks like he's got headphones, ski goggles, a hat.
A Yeti hat.
Okay. He's got I bet he's got something in his hair that counts, like a barrette or like a rubber.
You're right. You win.
Thank you.
4. It's 4 things on my head.
Yeah, I set the over under at 3, and I said 4.
I've got a ponytail holder, a hat.
Okay.
Well, so he is the guy that insists on
Headphones,
wearing
glasses.
the sunglasses indoor at night. And so I appreciate the fact that he is sticking with the brand. This is okay with me.
Knows who he is.
Yeah. So, dude, this is part of it. So cool. Let's go.
He embraces it. He embraces the affectation. It's very.
Well, no, you haven't even asked why I've got him on. You're just already all over me.
I wasn't gonna ask.
We don't care. It's some crazy reason. Go ahead, tell us.
No.
James, would you like to ask him nicely, since I was the one that was so dismissive?
No, see, this is a trick I like to do. Like when your wife gets her hair done, intentionally don't mention it and see how long it takes before she just volcanoes. Right? And so if he's going to show up like this, we should just not mention it and just keep going on about our business until he demands to explain why he's wearing the goggles.
I actually didn't think they needed an explanation, quite honestly.
Well, why did you offer one then? You acted like it was a big thing.
I figure it's bright in there. Maybe there's a lot of wind.
Didn't you think there was some cool story behind it? The way he said, you didn't even ask why I'm wearing them. Yeah.
No, there's no story.
Well, it's like you
okay, so there is actually a story. Now that you mention it, there is a damn story. So you do remember when I would wear my sunglasses all the time?
Yes.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yeah, like the last show.
No, but there would be like a point in time when like I had 150 some employees, and like I had like doctors and attorneys and everybody coming to the suite. And it would be at night, remember, and I would always have my shades on.
Yeah.
Like all the time. It was because like I was smoking weed back then.
Oh, okay. So that's why you were. No, wait. We used to call him sunglasses. Remember, we called him sunglasses in the early days of the show.
Like
but
in
you
the
weren't
early
smoking
days.
weed then.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that you said when we started doing this show, and you originally were on, and then you were off for like 6 months. When you first started doing the show, you wore sunglasses every night, and we called you sunglasses. You were not smoking weed when you were wearing sunglasses then. Is that so difficult to follow? James, did you follow that?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the fact of why I was wearing the sunglasses. So I moved recently, as you're well aware.
Yes.
And so now I've reorganized my life.
Okay. All right.
And I have a drawer of sunglasses. Like I literally have figured out how many of these sumbitches I have.
As one does.
How many do you have?
I've got like 2 pairs, and they're both from the dollar store.
And so this is the whole point of the story. So I decided tonight that I would start wearing one pair every night, a different pair every night, just to actually give them a little camera time since I haven't had them out in years. And
Hey, Trump, what is this, some kind of tax scheme? What do you think, you're going to write them off now? You got the receipts?
no, I'm just thinking about the time when I was so stupid as to have like literally, probably 25 pairs of sunglasses. I don't know.
Yeah, and so if the people who are watching don't understand the disappointed look on Pugs and myself's face, is because you lean on each other for to bring content to the show, to bring some meat, to bring back something you killed to the campfire, and E's got this ongoing serial piece of content where he wears different sunglasses.
Yeah, nah, he has more than that. He's the fire that burns white hot underneath our feet.
Well, but I mean, shouldn't that be a little bit of what I bring to the party?
It should. And what sunglasses?
Like you got like hoses in the backyard. You got hoses in the backyard there that appear like they're lariats in your background.
Cords. Those are my.
I'm
cords.
like stuck with 105.3 shirts, which I guess to our guest it will be impressive that he sees the 105.3 logo. And then beyond that, I've like started to brand another brand that I'm proud of.
Oh, what's that? Oh, is that you're pimping out your kid?
Right,
Crazy art.
This is like a brand of like serial killer. T-shirts that are kind of one-offs that I started wearing to Six Flags, and people are like, dude, I like your shirt. And I think it's got like a Mr. Bill kind of a look to it.
It does, absolutely.
Like if Mr. Bill were going to commit mass murder. Oh, like I got to go this way. Yeah, so if Mr. Bill were going to commit mass murder, this is what the shirt would look like. So Silly Scream.
Yeah, dude, after the last 60 seconds, it doesn't matter if you're wearing ski goggles or not. We can tell you're high. It's more high than the goggles.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, my God.
All right. So
I'm nervous about our guest, actually.
Well, I'm nervous about our guest showing up because he has not connected yet. So let me hit him up on Facebook right now. He's in a different time zone, so maybe that's a problem. Our guest tonight is Reid Reker, who is the founder, for all intents and purposes, of Live 105.3. So in our ongoing conversation about the history of Live 105.3, as we gather the requisite information in order to put out the forthcoming podcast, Who Killed Live 105.3? Tonight we were going to listen and speak with Reid Reker, the original general manager down here. He came over here, CBS New York, they sent him down here and they said, we got this country station and it's doing just fine. But we really think we can corner the market with that kind of talk that you've been doing up there. And so Reid Reker came down here. He was put in charge and he was tasked with creating a station like the one that he had come from. So we're going to talk to him all about that and about, he looked at the market. He had never been in Dallas before. He's got a lot of interesting stories. He's incredibly important for us for me anyway, in the ongoing creation of this. But he's not here.
All right, so look good. This gives us a chance because we still haven't talked about our trip to Rollertown on Friday. Monday was totally covered by the guest Jody Dean. Thank you very much for another Dallas radio legend for being on our show.
Oh, Jody, thank you.
I can do around here.
Quintessential Texan, as Pugs described him.
And then
I do have one regret from that particular interview.
What's that?
I didn't get a chance to ask him if he essentially killed his pain by drinking whiskey.
Apropos,
Much like you, that wasn't the quintessential Texan.
Yeah.
You being a guy from a city where prohibition.
New York City.
What do you
Chicago.
What do you kidding me? We completely ignored prohibition. We're the city where all the
Well, and that's what I'm saying. A whiskey drinker and an Irishman.
I'm an Irishman, yeah. I'm
Right,
double-
and
so I
so
see what you're
the-
saying. Like a Texan, they're known to drink the
The
whiskey.
quintessential,
The
yeah.
Irishman
Like
known
a
to drink-
cowboy
sure.
is a whiskey.
Sure,
drinker.
like maybe a Kentucky frontiersman might also, drink the.
Look, but from what I've read, Chicago was not real enthusiastic about prohibition.
Well, no, none of the northern cities were.
Was that the worst
know-
idea? Like slavery?
and the other
Hey, Al
thing
Capone
that
loved that idea. Made him one of the wealthiest people on the planet. He loved it.
do you want to know another regret that I have from that interview?
What's that? From the interview with, we're talking about Jody Dean from the other night, the legendary
yeah.
Jody Dean.
All right.
How well trained he is as a radio personality, and like how regimented he was trained by Ron Chapman, who is like a radio god here. And just like, oh my God, like zero training. Like the
do you
fact that he's having to see me like actually
Oh,
talk
yeah,
next to you
nah,
guys.
he's
Like
been
I'm
around
like,
people-
oh my God.
Nah, he's been around people off the streets all the time. That's one of the things about radio. I will say this about the Jody Dean interview that we did the other day. He was a lot harder on himself in the way he perceives himself in the workplace than the people that I know that have worked for him. Like he said,
Exactly,
he talked about
right?
himself like he was a tyrant. Didn't you get that, James?
Well,
like
yeah,
he was,
and the real assholes aren't self-aware. That's
Yeah, maybe
part of
so.
What makes you the second level asshole?
but it had been my experience, just speaking a little bit and knowing a little bit some of the people that had worked with him. That wasn't at all what people who work with him say about him. So
I don't think I know anyone who worked directly with him who's given me any inside scoop on him, so I didn't know what to expect.
I have heard that Chapman was a tyrant, though. Those stories in this market are legendary. Yay.
I just like, okay, so I went into that interview like going, wow, like Jody Dean's going to be on air, and having this like in my mind vision of like Jody Dean. And then when we went in that interview and he was just real and genuine and like explained the whole thing. And then when he got to what he's doing today and like that he's a producer, I was like, my God, man, this guy is just awesome. Like I was more of a fan after that interview, and I just kind of sat here and I was like, wow. And then I saw that like Ron Chapman, kind of like Pugs was saying, very critical of himself, but how a guy like that would just be such an awesome producer. I mean, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, he's a legit radio guy, and the way he's living his life now is probably what James and I would hope that we could still have time to shoot for, which is, he probably got out around 60 years old and has spent the last 3 or 4 years doing whatever the hell he wants. And right now, that means he's bumming around from film set to film set doing construction as a guy that did 40 years as a radio legend in Dallas. That's the way to do it, man. That's how you live life. He's been married a bunch of times. He's got a kid he loves, and he's just enjoying, the rest of
Didn't have echoes of Jagger. Would they have like a cupcake shop and
A coffee shop? Wasn't it a coffee bake shop that Jagger was doing?
I imagine that Jagger's Diner is like on a cliff overlooking a thunderous bay in the Pacific Northwest, almost like a Popeye village. Just some sort of picturesque place that everybody would love to spend the rest of their life in. And he's done with the nonsense, so Jagger's there. You got Jody Dean building sets for Taylor Sheridan and 1883 and all those shows. So it's a good life. It's a good life for those guys.
Wow.
And Russ Martin is dead. We never really got to know what he was going to do. Post. Hey, no, that's never a good thing. Yeah, thank you. All right, well, look.
Was that a foul?
Yeah, that was a foul.
You called a foul on
No,
yourself?
I called a foul on James. I threw a flag. There you go. Yeah, James hit that. That's James' sound effect for clapping. James, show your sound effect for clapping so we don't confuse people. Yeah, that's what it sounds like when James hits his. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's another way I'm handicapped on this show.
You don't have an applause button for yourself.
I don't have any.
I have
buttons.
several though, because I have like the light applause. This one.
It's probably a good idea that I don't have buttons.
Then I have the bigger one, and then I have the even bigger one.
So look, we're just filling time right here. So let me just give you an update.
The biggest one. Hang on, the biggest.
Well, now that we're filling time, can we like air some grievances?
Well, no. Let's stick to some modicum of professionalism here. All right, so Reid is not responding on my Facebook. The last time I talked to him was 6:37 this evening. We got it all set up. So he's not here right now. I don't know what that means. He was very enthusiastic about doing it, but he is a busy man with a big job, so who knows? You know, I mean, we're a bunch of guys just hanging out doing a stream at 9 o'clock. He's probably still working in some capacity. So we will get him back. Tomorrow night, we have Chaz Knight, who is going to have incredibly interesting stories. Do you remember Chaz?
Hell yeah, red leather.
I do. Red leather.
Yeah, Chaz ran up the beginnings of the 105.3 promotions department. Cindy, I think it was Cindy who was the promotions director. She was dying of cancer. And that was sort of this really sad story that was hanging over the beginning of 105.3. And Jason and Chaz basically ran every cool-ass promotion that Russ came up with, that Kelly and I came up with. So he's got all the behind-the-scenes stories about things that went wrong and all that kind of stuff. So Chaz tomorrow. And then on Monday, ladies and gentlemen.
And he's in a great band, that Red Leather. I think he still does
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
One of Dallas's best party bands. So we'll talk to Chaz tomorrow night, and then Bob McNeil, the original program director, on Monday night. Very excited to talk to Bob. And then we'll get Reid on Tuesday. We'll get Reid. Reid will reschedule because Reid has to be a part of this.
This Bob McNeil guy, I think I met him. Was he like fired when Liz was fired?
I don't know. I do not know. I don't know the timing. That's why I need to talk to Bob about it.
Absolute yes, wasn't it? I think it was like the same day, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Right, because the way that I remember it, and I got to get this clarified, I think I had to sit down in front of him to do an air check in order to get the time on Saturday.
That's right. He rubber stamped you and said, "I'm fired." Isn't that the story?
And I think he just said, "Yeah, it's okay." Because I sat down in there and,
at that point,
he said, "Yeah, it's okay."
Whatever.
And so I got on, and they put me on Liz's show, and then Liz got fired, and then I actually went on for the first show, and then Gavin was there, and Gavin was listening, and he was not happy.
I'll say this. I would not describe Bob's departure as being fired because the people didn't want him to be fired. What Bob was probably doing was making 3 times what they paid Gavin. That's probably what happened.
Okay. Well, I don't know. All I know is I remember I sat down with somebody.
You didn't say wrong. I just want to make sure that it's clear because he wasn't fired, but he wasn't fired for incompetency or anything.
He was transferred to San Antonio, wasn't he?
No, that was Reid. Reid took over the San Antonio market. He became like the cluster GM of all the stations.
Bob went to Sacramento?
Bob, I don't know. Yeah, I think Bob went to the West Coast. Yeah. But I don't think that was directly after. I think Bob just went back.
He got fired, though. Didn't he just go to a different station in the company?
I'm not sure. Well, that's why we got to talk to him. We'll talk to him. We'll find out all of that stuff. And that's coming up on Monday. Tomorrow, Chaz Night, Monday. Also, a quick update. I don't think we're going to get Liz. Liz Wild is in really bad shape, so keep a good thought for her. I've been communicating via Facebook, and she has not responded, but I have received word that sit tight. I think she's not going to participate in anything for obvious reasons. She had surgery today, I believe, which is probably like the 5th surgery she's had in the last, amount of time that you could have that many surgeries in. I'm not sure. So keep a good thought for Liz Wild. And I told him, I said, look, don't give this a second thought, man. I mean, come on. We'll wait. We'll talk to her. Don't you worry. Let her start feeling better. She wants to talk, and we're sure she will feel better. So best thoughts out for Liz Wild.
Yes. I followed her Facebook. I didn't know if that interview was going to be possible or not.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is I really have, you know, fond memories of that Bob McNeil 1 week, and then Gavin coming in the next week. And to be very honest, I mean, Gavin was very nice, very much encouraging when I was on the air, kind of
Yeah.
would spend time and listen to me on Saturdays, and really helped, coach me from 1 hour to 2 hours to 3 hours to 4 hours to 8 hours when I started doing Sundays.
Mhm.
And so I have nothing really, honestly, when it comes to Gavin's relationship with the shows, or helping the hosts or the people that were co-hosting or people that were buying time on the weekends, which I was in that category. Schwartz included in there. Some of the other shows, the mortgage show. Gavin was always very much encouraging and trying to make the station have a certain sound, and he was paying attention on the weekends and in the evenings and during the days. And so I honestly will say in my mind, he was a big driving force of what that sounded like. I think he got abused by a certain show in that equation. And, I mean, we can go on later about that. But
Yeah, I mean, I can say that during the changeover between Bob McNeil and Gavin Spittle, there was certainly a sense of loss because we liked Bob. Most people did like Bob. Bob was a likable guy. And he was good and he was competent and shit got done. And he was sort of like he wasn't a kid like the rest of us. He seemed to have some heft and weight within the company. So if you had a complaint, you know what I mean? You could go to him and, oh yeah, I used to work 20 years ago with the guy who's now the president. You know what I mean? He was a guy of some accomplishment. So he could get things done. When Gavin came in, it was very much like, okay, here's a young guy from a smaller market who's probably never dealt with a personality like Russ Martin before, let alone Kelly and I, who together we could be pretty deadly and make fun of management pretty nicely to their faces. So I think, but when he came in, we were encouraged because he was competent, he was fun, he was game for anything. He got the format. So yeah, there shouldn't be this perception that when Gavin Spittle came in that he was some bumbling fool. Russ may have pushed that narrative, but it was neither fact nor anything that any of the other shows said or put out there.
And I felt like he was the glue a lot of times that would come on your actual show or my actual show and help solidify bits or giggles or things that we had going on between your show or my show, or things on the weekend, or where we appeared, or something in the station, that Mr. Puny contest or whatever it was, that the crazy promo that we were trying to all push for.
Yeah.
I think he was a good glue in making that zigzag across, because Russ wasn't going to do it. And Gavin seemed to be the guy
job to do it for the rest.
Well, but you guys were gracious during the week to play with people that were on the weekend. And I happened to be one of those people. Right. Like Dan and Tassos were over there on the weekend, and naturally they had support from Russ's side of the equation. But it made the station a more listenable 7 days a week.
We hung out with you guys. We hung out with Schwartz. We hung out with the Speed Freaks. We had all of the different weekend shows. Ken Goldberg was in and out of our show. You know what I mean? So we had all. Yeah, you're right. Russ didn't care. We were trying to make it more of a cohesive thing, and we didn't want to see the ratings drop off on the weekends because that's just bad for the station. Just another way that
So it was in a lot of ways. I mean, I see it, a lot like, not identical, but a lot like what the Freak is trying to do right now.
And not for nothing, but everybody that I just named, from Emil to Schwartz to Kenny Sargent of Speed Freaks to Ken Goldberg of DFW Gun Talk, every single one of those people are bigger than life personalities who weren't a burden to have on the air. They were kind of fun and interesting. Schwartz is going to bring the show down. Ken Goldberg He's going to bring the show down? No.
Well, I think you gave me more credit, but yeah, I mean, yeah, those guys are interesting to listen
So
to.
Kenny Sargent is awesome.
yeah,
You know, he's,
one guy we're missing is the dude who did the cigar show. Was that wasn't Cigar Dave? That's the national guy.
yeah, what was that guy's name? Wasn't he a comic? Wasn't he a stand-up comic?
Yes, and he was really good at it too. It's like Chuck or something.
Forgot.
You know his name?
Chuck.
Huh?
Ah.
Yeah, dude, his show was good, and then he had a deal where he did it like every week from the Silver City for like 3 months, and so we were all volunteering to be the crew on that one.
Yeah, promotions team.
Yeah, I think I remember and then maybe is that some of the time that he no longer was there for a while, after a while. I think that cigar was it in the afternoon
On Saturday, and it wasn't a bad show, and he usually did it with someone else, but that someone else was a rotating
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah, I think it was just before we got started, if I remember.
Yeah, and he had really good promos too, like Macanudos, Santo Panzo, Romeo and Julieta.
Yeah, I'm quite,
And the other good thing about that station was that they had a connection to the improv, or we'll say at least to the comedy clubs. So if that comedian show did not sell out over the weekend, and we had a high enough weekend share of the ratings, it would make sense for the improv to throw the comedian in on the weekend shows. And so we'd end up a lot of times with guests that were Monday through Friday guests that would also be piled into the Saturday and the Sunday. And it was talk radio you could listen to without tuning into, the Longhorns or Texas Tech or whoever had bought time to broadcast their football game. And, it was something that you could listen to that was live, which is why, I think we all enjoyed that audience continuing.
All right, Pugs, you look like you're about to look something up and start something. But
I was trying to find Chuck's last name. I can't find it anywhere. Did we? I know you want to do something, but since we were just talking about Gavin, do you want to go into that whole thing?
yeah, so I just want to exercise a metaphor here because this is something that's kind of been ruminating in my head, but I don't think I've said it out loud on this stream before. Is that I don't want to say necessarily from my point of view, but kind of from my point of view. If you're someone who walked in, and I walked in 2002, Bob McNeil was my first program director in radio ever, and he had put together this. I don't know who put it together, but he was the head coach when I got there of this amazing cast where it was Howard Stern, Pugs and Kelly, Russ Martin, and then whatever was happening the night. Not that it was not as important, but the powerhouse for the whole day was freaking
6 to 6. Yeah, 6 to 6. It was strong.
All three of those shows were bangers. They were all winning. They were all good. Everyone loved them. It was the place to be. It was happening. It was moving. It was shaking. There was a lot of traffic in and out. Everyone's making money. Advertisers are happy. The audience is happy. Management's happy. Employees are happy. Everybody's happy. It's a good time, right? And after establishing this winning brand and this winning team, he leaves. And that would sort of make, from my very myopic hillbilly mind, that would make Gavin Switzer. You understand? Gavin Spittle is Barry Switzer. It doesn't matter really who comes in and takes over this brand. You could have put a guy who has no idea what he's doing, and he would have done an okay job with Howard Stern, Pugs and Kelly, and Russ Martin. So, yeah, how do you screw it from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.? Like, all you gotta do is blow it up.
And I think that's why management looked at their, $250,000, $300,000 a year program director and said, does he do an air check session? You know what I mean? And I think that's when they went, let's cut that salary and let's give a kid a break who's in a smaller market in Vegas, and let's bring him to the big time. He'll take whatever we pay him, because this is a market jump that, you don't turn down in radio, right, James? You don't take a market jump in Vegas.
Market number 5, no one turns it down. You have to be a real.
So is that when you jumped? Did you jump when Howard got cut?
I left. Well, I am a sort of an amoeba. I'm like the blob. Like, you can't really stop me. So first off, I didn't really work there for a while to begin with, and I was just coming in the building and working for free. And then I kind of had employment for a while, and I got fired. And then I was doing bits and coming into Pugs and Kelly every day. And so then I got fired again, which meant I was banned from the building, but I was still doing bits from outside. And if they were on remote, I would go to that. And Pugs and Kelly were paying me under the table or doing ridiculous things. Like Kelly said, if you paint my living room, I'll give you like $700 or something stupid like that. Yeah. So they, they kept the money coming if I kept the bits coming. And so I kept the idea of my employment was sort of nebulous, because even when I moved to Oklahoma in 2005, but I kept doing bits for them. Like I did 2 more years of Cowboys theme songs. Like I was even doing bits for them still. I kind of had to stop when I started working for Sirius because they were getting a little jealous, like you're still doing bits for your old show in Dallas. That was like 2 jobs ago. And oh yeah.
We didn't even know he was gone until he was gone for a year.
Yeah. So
why? Because he was working remotely.
Yeah. he was cranking out content, so we're like, whatever. Where's James?
So much
I don't know, but his new song's a banger.
Yeah. I sure was on the station a lot for someone who wasn't employed technically, but it's just look, employment's just an ethereal concept to begin with,
Hey, what did Bob McNeil? We'll talk about this. Didn't Bob McNeil fire you for something and then hire you back, or what's the weird dynamic there? Didn't you do something vulgar online or something?
Yeah, so I was the guy that was in charge of keeping up the events calendar on the Pugs and Kelly Show website, and I wrote, and I'm sorry to say this out loud again, this was horribly irresponsible and immature of me, but I said Thursday from like 5 to 7, you can go see that swab motherfucker Bobby out at Hollywood Video on Beltline and get some free shit. Like that might be a quote, but I said he was a swab motherfucker, and I said free shit. And because I wrote that on the website, somebody from Clear Channel, like some sales executive from.
Dude, we were such a skanky station that shouldn't even batted an eyebrow on our website. We're so skanky.
No, you can't have that.
Well, I know you can't have that. And Kelly and I were just so disappointed because we're like, James is smart. How can he not know?
It was stupid. It was stupid. I thought it would be good for business. I thought it would be good for, does it turn more people out? Is it memorable? Will someone read that and remember it and be more likely to go to Hollywood Video?
But gratuitous vulgarity. And we don't really, we don't need to lean into that. We can play to that.
Come out with ski glasses on, dude.
No, that's right. So Bob fired you. So how'd that go? Was that fairly friendly?
Listen, it was an account executive from a Clear Channel at the time called and pointed it out to Hollywood Video and knew the person that controlled the marketing dollars was a very family conscious, or I don't know, hyper Christian or something.
Sure.
And we lost money. They pulled money from us because we had the events that were lined up, and they were like, we don't want any more events. And so like a sales order got canceled, and I cost the station money. And when you're the lowest guy in the totem pole and you cost the station money,
you're gone.
Bye. So
I remember,
and Bob explained it to me like that. He's like, listen, you're good, and I like you, and I don't want to have to do this, but you cost the station money, and you're the lowest guy on the totem pole.
You're expendable. You are a cockroach around here, and it's going to make some asshole happy if I can tell them that you've been fired. So guess what?
But he was like, look, he was respectful, but he was also like, that was really dumb. Like that was really dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen anybody get fired for that before. So, but you seem like a tenacious guy, and if you stick with it, maybe you'll be able to claw your way back in somewhere else. And I wish you the best of luck. And you're a talented guy. So then,
but that was dumb. Don't forget that was dumb.
Yeah, that was dumb. And I was like, so I'll see you at Pom Poms tonight, right? And he's like, yeah, I'll see you at Pom Poms tonight. So Eric was hosting Hot Oil Wrestling or something goofy like that, and I sat at a table with Bob, and he must have bought me like 4 beers, and we just chitty chatted for a couple hours, right after he fired me.
Yeah. Bob's a good dude.
That's nice.
Bob's a good dude.
So Pugs, when they got rid of Stern, where were you at the station? Were you on in the evenings?
Me?
Yeah.
when
Like you started on
what do you mean when
105.3
they got rid of
in
when nobody
overnights.
ever got rid of Stern? What do you mean when they got rid of?
When they took him off the Eagle or wherever he was on.
Oh, you see, that
And
predates me. I was in Chicago then. Kelly and I were doing evenings in Chicago. Yeah.
okay, okay.
So
So he went from the Eagle, didn't he, to
yeah, how
105.3?
long was he off? Like, how long was Howard off the air between the Eagle and 105.3?
I think it was
Anybody
2
know?
or 3 years because
It was
that's
a
where
while.
Russ Martin first made his emergence as the guy who replaced Howard Stern, which I thought was an impossible job. And this was the first time I was exposed to Russ Martin. And you expect whoever's just going to step into that to get chewed up and spit out. And it started rough, but after a while, you're like, yeah, who can't like this guy? Right?
And Howard was kept out of the market during the rise of Russ at the Eagle, right?
Yeah, if he was in the market, I didn't find him. But
Yeah,
this was before I was in radio.
yeah.
So I
So
was
Russ
following
benefited greatly from Howard's exile from the DFW market.
Because I remember the
As did
first.
hold on, and this will ring for James. That's how Mancow broke through in Chicago. Mancow, if Howard and Mancow had been head to head in Chicago when Mancow launched, Mancow wouldn't have been. I mean, at that time, Mancow was like the third or fourth, shock jock radio guy in the country. There was Howard, there was Opie and Anthony, but Mancow was up there too. He would never have gotten there, just like Russ, if Howard had been in the market, because. Ah, man, it's
Why
luck.
was Howard gone from Dallas and Chicago at the same time?
Howard never really made it in Chicago. Howard first started syndicating in Chicago in 1985, but Chicago had already had a station that I was at called The Loop, which was already. Anybody that would listen to Howard was already a P1 loop. Like, the way ticket people are P1 crazy, they were like that. So Howard was on like 5 different stations in 6 years between 85 and 91. And they would all be like these AM distant stations. And so he just never had a chance in the Chicago market. Once the loop exploded and everybody broke off, then Howard was used to anchor WCKG, which was put together in Chicago with Howard Stern in mornings and then some remnants from the Loop. And that was run by Reid Reker, who had such a success with that station that New York said, will you do that in Dallas at this country station? And that's where Live 105.3 comes from.
And then, so like I'll go because I'm older than both of you. I started out as a Howard listener. Okay. So I'm like a Howard listener when he's on 97.1 The Eagle.
Yeah.
And the first day that I tune in, because I listened religiously, just he was like the show that I wanted to listen to. You'd hang out in the car when you'd pull into the parking lot and be late to walk into work because you'd be waiting for him to finish. He had no clock, he had nothing, and so he was just like cool like that. So I remember the first day they took him off the air, and I had heard him all the time bitch about this guy Scott Ginsburg, how he hated Scott Ginsburg and how he wanted Scott Ginsburg's kids to like burn in hell and like I didn't know who the hell Scott Ginsburg was, at the time because you're just listening.
Yeah.
And so
But at this time I did because he was my boss.
Right. But I'm just
Right.
saying I didn't know. I'm
Right.
just listening as a listener. And so they take him off air in at the Eagle, and I am driving in and I am pissed. And so I dial the Howard Stern number and I get to talk to the call screener, and he's like, hey, where you calling from? Da, da, da. And I'm like, my name is Emil. I'm calling from Dallas, and they just took you out. This is first morning. You're not on air. Da, da, da. He's like, okay, cool. We're going to put you in. And so I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to go on the air, with Howard.
Okay, you thought it was Howard, but Howard was gone? Because you just.
No,
you
Howard was not on the Eagle, but I knew the number to call in.
Oh, so you were
like
calling.
the 800.
So he was off in Dallas, but you were calling the New York number, the 1-800.
But I was calling the
Okay.
New York
Okay, I
number.
got you.
And so they put me on, so I'm talking to the call screener, da, 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 da. And so it was a topic, obviously, that he, wanted to continue or to get onto or whatever. And so they put me through as a guy in Dallas that, wasn't able to get through. And so I'm like, oh, shit. Like here I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to be on Howard. And like what, like I'm trying to get everything right. And so I go on and they go, oh, yeah, this is Emil from Dallas. And he goes, anal. and like right on Stern, he starts out on anal.
Mhm.
And he was like, well, how was that growing up? And I was like, what? He goes, anal. And I was like, well, I said it really wasn't anal. I get that a little bit, but I would get a meal a lot. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah, but I'm just a snack like that. And he was
Look
like,
what he did. Look what he did. He went all that way for a joke. It was terrible, but he went all that way.
it was terrible.
It was terrible.
And like I hung with him for like 30 seconds, and then he got into me not being on the air, and then he hung up on
I
me.
was very late to the Howard Stern party, the Howard Stern Appreciation Party. I'd say mid '90s. Mid '90s is when I finally broke through and had to admit that he was good. And it was just simply because of where we were from. We were brainwashed into believing that he was, just a clown and not any good and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So I hated Howard Stern. At the point,
Really?
despised him. My guys were better. And my guys were telling me they were better. And when all you have is what you have, it becomes a team sport, right? And this guy, because we thought our guy, Steve Dahl, was the inventor of shock talk, and all of that stuff. And now all of a sudden, Howard Stern, because he's in New York, he suddenly has a bigger platform, and he's running around claiming that he's the guy.
So you had that number 3 cities kind of team.
And, well, it wasn't necessarily that, but it was like here's Steve Dahl, the guy who pretty much started this whole style of talk. Howard Stern followed Steve Dahl in Detroit. If you watch Private Parts, the scene in Private Parts where Howard decides he's going to go for it is when he takes over for Steve Dahl in Detroit. Steve Dahl had gone from Detroit to Chicago. And when Howard sat down, they said, yeah, the guy you're replacing was a real wild man. And that's when Howard flipped the switch and became the wild man. So, I mean, there was always this rivalry where we were loyal to Steve. Steve was our guy, and Howard was. But, it became obviously clear that the story between Steve Dahl and Howard Stern is that they knew of each other, obviously, and they were competitors and they were doing all this. Steve Dahl became an addict. Steve Dahl became an alcoholic, and he got hooked on drugs. And although he was wildly successful, he enjoyed the party of it. And Howard fucking Stern never took his eye off the ball and went, and that's the difference. That's the difference. Steve Dahl very well may be more talented, more funny, or quicker wit, or a better innovator than Howard Stern. Very well may be. I don't know. But he was stoned for a lot of the 80s when Howard was trying to figure out how to get into 200 markets. So, that's the difference. So, yeah, I was late to Howard Stern. Mid-'90s is when I went, wow, okay, this guy's undeniable. It's, he's just that.
Yeah, so that's what brought me over to 105.3. It was the fact that Howard was gone, and then he came back. And then at that point, Bruce from, back then it was, the porn shops that
Bruce
he had.
Bruce X. Yeah.
Bruce,
the late, great
Bruce X. I had lived with him and Ron Chapman in the building that I said burned down.
I was gonna say, what are you guys living like the monkeys in a beach house? Just all with a different room.
In the building that burned down that Ron Chapman was in. Bruce from the porno, Ron Chapman, and I tying that to Monday's interview with Jody Dean. Yeah. That's how crazy that was. So Bruce and I basically live in the same building, burns down. And then when I first got on air, like week 2 or week 3, Bruce heard me and he's like, hey, remember me? This is Bruce from We Lived in, and I was like, really? And that's how Bruce and I hooked back up. And then you were already hooked up with him, I think, at that time.
And then look at us. A couple weeks later, we're all running around together. James, do you want to get into anything specifically that we talked about last night, or should we leave that for off the air?
We got secrets.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of secrets, but it won't forever be a secret. But for the programming purposes of what we're putting together, we may not want to make it public right now.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I heard back from Gavin.
We reached out to Gavin, who has been discussed quite a bit through the interviews here throughout the Who Killed Live 105.3 pregame show. I guess that's what we'll call this. We reached out to him. We asked him to come be a part of it. He should be a part of it. He's a very important part of it. And James reached out to him. So go ahead, James. Tell us about how that went.
Well, look, Live on 105.3 only had 2 program directors. Bob McNeil, who's supposed to be on Monday's show, Gavin Spittle's the other one. Gavin Spittle, however, is still in the business and is back as program director of 105.3, and his current incarnation is the Fan.
Yeah.
So we reached out to him, knowing it was kind of I don't want to say it was a long shot, but
It's a long shot. It's a long shot. Given my personal history with him, it's a long shot.
Well, I don't know what that personal history is, so I don't know how long of a shot I was throwing out there. Thanks a lot, but
I would call it like a rifle. It would not be a shotgun shot. It would be a rifle shot.
But I would also argue that in this stupid business that we're in, I know half a dozen people off the top of my head who have been far worse estranged from other people in the business who just one day it was fine. So, I mean, it's not like there's anything between us that I could see would be irreparable. Neither of us have ever made an attempt to repair anything, nor do I think there's any great desire, but it's not irreparable. Like if we were stuck in an elevator together, we wouldn't knife fight. We'd probably work it out. You know what I mean?
So are you shouldering some blame here?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I can see why.
It's his blame. What is he? Me and Gavin are awkward? No, it's Pugs, dude. Pugs ruined it.
I think he would have a right to feel that way. But my argument is, so many people have already mentioned him. And as James pointed out, he's only one of 2 program directors we had. He's very important to where this station is. This is not a hit piece. This is not a Gavin Spittle hit piece. It's not a Russ Martin hit piece. It's not. And maybe originally that's where the passion and the vigor came from. But it has turned really into something that is important to me. It's a nice story. It's turning into a really, I think, interesting story. And Gavin, I think, needs to be represented. Now, why he doesn't want to be, because he doesn't want to lend credibility to the project. That was one of the things, right? Which is understandable.
He did not say that he doesn't want to lend credibility, but of course that's going to be a factor, that he doesn't want to draw attention to it.
Sure. Why would he, especially if he believes he's about to be hammered, which he is not going to be hammered?
I don't think that's an accurate representation. He doesn't want to lend credibility to it. I mean, I think the reality is when you...
So, that's what James...
But I mean, when you get a bunch of people, when you get a majority of the people that worked at 105.3 in the time period that you're referencing, coming in and interviewing, I apologize if maybe I'm not giving due respect here. I don't think any one person can come in and go, oh, well, because I didn't interview, it's not credible. Like, I think the reality is this is credible. The amount of people that have responded has been overwhelmingly, in my opinion, impressive in a positive way, not a negative way. Yeah. And I think that a guy like Gavin, although it may appear, this was a bash Gavin or a bash Russ or that whole team together, I don't see it as that. Before tonight, I just started saying great things about Gavin.
Right. It's not about that, but I can understand why he might have a concern that it is. I totally get that.
And it's somebody that picked up your personal effects from the station, and Gavin and I were the interchange, and I still saw him years after at Stars games, and we were cordial, and nothing no ill will.
He's fine
between us. I mean, I don't have anything negative to say other than it was just a bad situation that everybody, in my opinion, was put in because of a personality.
Yeah. The pressure,
and
that was a pressure cooker created by somebody else that caused problems. Where was I in the Gavin thing? I was just going to say something about it. Oh, for crying out loud! I know.
Anyway, how we think?
God damn it! I just remembered it. We have done our due diligence on this, James. My journalism teacher, Ed Morris, would be very proud of us, because now, at the very least, when we finish this, we can say we reached out to Gavin Spittle, and he declined. We did everything.
Trying to go on the record, right?
Yes, we did everything that is incumbent upon us through the rules of fair play and proper journalism. We reached out, but I'm gonna send him a note regardless.
Go E. Joey.
Is your journalist teacher still alive?
No, Mr. Morris died. Yeah,
Oh
like
shit.
20 years ago.
I wanted to reach out to him and get his approval on your approach.
No, he died like 20 years ago. Yeah, I liked him.
Well, see, all right. So I would like to throw in there that I found it a sign of at least basic decency and respect that he even called to have the conversation with me.
Without a doubt.
He could have just texted
Yep.
or sent an email or been like, no, period. And
Could have just ignored you. No, class guy.
right. He could have ghosted me. And my relationship with Gavin is, I don't want to say it's strained, but remember when I was there, I was Leonardo DiCaprio from Catch Me If You Can. I'd already been fired, but I'm still coming in the building. So when Gavin shows up and I'm showing up every day, he just assumes I'm an employee. So it takes him a couple months to find out I'm not. And then I get in trouble. So then
You were the dude from The Office who has worked there for 2 years. He was fired 2 years ago, but he just kept showing up. You're Costanza.
Yeah,
With the Yankees.
So then I couldn't come. So then I couldn't come in anymore. But I was still doing bits, and then I wasn't allowed to do bits anymore because I did the PSA about don't do cocaine because meth is cheaper or something.
Oh, your PSA.
So then I got banned again. So now my voice can't even be on the air. But if it was a parody song and I was singing, somehow that still flew. So that was the only connection I had.
Those were your encounters with Gavin? Like you got banned and he was the one enforcing the ban?
Yeah, and I was the guy that was constantly begging him for a job. And looking back,
oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah,
like of the three of us, you had the most
lowest. I had the lowest encounter because listen, like if you ever hang out, we talk to Head Crack. If you ever hang out with Head Crack, just in some regular place in Dallas, doesn't matter where you go. You go to Cafe Brazil, off 75. There will be 6 different guys who recognize him and say, "Listen, I'm a rapper. If you could listen to my mixtape and play it on your show, that would be amazing. Look, here's my email. Here's my Insta, or here's my whatever." Right? It is the bane of his existence that because of where he is all day, every day, people are asking them to play their goddamn rap songs on his show, and he can't. So if you're the program director of a talk station,
people know what he looks like. You know what I mean? He's not even just like an obscure radio guy. People know what he looks like.
So there's the same thing that happens if you're the program director of a talk station, especially a cool, hip talk station, a big market. All day, every day, people are asking you for jobs. Is there an opening? Can you get me in?
Right.
I can do some on the weekends. You can fill in, or I got the best show ever. Or you should put me on, or I'm this guy. Or check out. You should listen to this MP3 or my mix or whatever. I got a portfolio. So I was one of those guys, and it makes me kind of embarrassed that I was a guy that was constantly begging a dude for jobs back in the day. Well, now I would never beg anyone for a job. It's like, you're gonna put me on or you're not. But I ain't begging. So yeah, that's who I was. And so, but
how old were you back then?
25, 26.
Yeah, so of
Okay,
course you're gonna beg.
In the last 20 years, I have gone to many radio conventions and conferences and talk radio boot camp and the National Association of Broadcasters and the Talkers Conference in New York or the Marconi's Awards. And so I've seen this dude probably 10 different times where we've been at some industry social, bumped to him, and we both have one of those, open bar long necks in our hand, and we just chat for about 10 minutes.
Because you're both awkward because you don't really know anybody, but you guys have a tangential association.
And we can catch up on the people we do know.
Perfect.
You still in New Orleans? Yup. You just moved back to Dallas? Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. And so,
that's the whole point of going to those conventions, just so you can have 15 minutes with somebody who might be, helpful to you.
That's what you're paying for. That's what you're paying for. And really, that has sort of matured and sort of seasoned like beef jerky, the relationship that was kind of a mess to begin with. You do that for 20 years, and all of a sudden, I'm not that kid that was fetching coffee and begging him for jobs 20 years ago. Holy shit, he's seen me go from Oklahoma to Sirius to New Orleans morning show to the Waco morning show to filling in on USA Radio and Westwood One, and now I'm doing all this shit with Pugs. So, hopefully, I'm hoping that when he sees the name James Parker pop up on his phone, he doesn't think the coffee fetching guy that was harassing him for jobs and making fun
colleague. He thinks fellow professional. That's probably where you're at, right?
And I felt like he at least pretended that I was on the level with that phone call.
The phone.
Well, I think you're safe because it says Pugs and Parker. Don't put me in there.
Well, I think
It's like then he knows it's not professional. It's just the fact that like I'm just your guy's like third wheel over here.
yeah, you're the imbalance. The imbalance is important. Um, so you reached out to him, then he sent a text. I'll call you tomorrow. We'll talk about it. He actually took time out of his busy day to talk to you about it. What that says is either could be both or one or the other, that he has seriously considered it, which is a good thing, or that he has some concerns about it, that maybe he's concerned. So those are the reasons that he's reaching out to speak to you directly. But still, those are all, I mean, he didn't have to do that. He could have just buried his head in the sand and said, you know what, these peons, it was very respectful of him to call you, and it was a classy move.
And I almost feel him. Go ahead, E. I'm sorry.
Well, and I think he's a good guy. Yeah. Like he's got a dog that he adopted that I think's got two legs that work.
He's got a wheel. He's got a roller dog.
Yeah. He's got a roller dog. Aww. And like he takes and he checks it into like whatever. I mean, like when you see the way that he takes care of like dogs and animals like that, like that just generally, you cut through all the crap that you got to go through in life. It's generally a good person. And that's where I believe he is, but I don't want to sound like I'm, it just was unfortunate, the situation that everybody was in at the time.
It was.
And people got turned against each other. And I would say that him and Pugs, who I thought really had a close relationship.
We were friends until the day we weren't. And that's why I can't imagine that either of us in our most contemplative moments would think that there's any. It's not irreparable. It's fine. Anyway, let's move on. Tomorrow night we'll talk to Chaz. We'll talk about promotions and all that stuff. But give me one moment before you guys leave, okay? Because there is something big that I want to share with you before we get out of here.
Wait, hang on. While we're still talking about it, look, you see this comment while he was. Is that true? You still had that PSA? I went and found it real quick. Will it work if I just play it on the computer?
Yeah, let me hear it. If you
oh, this is the one
that got you fired? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is the one that got me fired the second time.
Okay.
I got fired 3 times from that station.
Hey, this is James from the Pugs and Kelly Show. Remember, kids, cocaine is a big mistake. It's expensive, and there are cheaper drugs out there that can get you the exact same high.
The more you know. There you go. Just educating the kids on the midday show.
And there goes your career.
Unfortunate. So a couple of weeks ago on the show, I played.
That was a firing?
Well, that's like the first firing is big. It doesn't mean as much if you fire someone the second time.
But that was the first firing.
No, that was the second firing.
No, Swab Motherfucker Bobby was the first one.
Motherfucker Bobby, yeah. I did a lot of dumb stuff. It was great.
Okay. So
I think that's progress, though.
Okay. Can we move
on?
No, but if we're going to listen to the firing, like Swab Motherfucker Bobby is an obvious firing. If that was firing number 2, that one I'm with James. It kind of dances on the line. I don't know that it's an official.
Well, I think it's fine.
Hey, you're fired.
I obviously don't think it's a fireable offense because I okayed it to go on the air. We listened to all those things before.
And you got fired for that?
Got fired
and that
for
was
that.
Gavin?
Not me. He's the Michael Cohen in this situation. I'm like the Trump. I said
Gavin pulled the trigger on you for that.
But it didn't actually fire me. Then I was only allowed to be on the show if I was Talcum X, because if James Parker's not on the show, then Gavin can't get mad. And so they were still playing my songs. And I don't think Gavin knew I was the idiot doing those songs just because they kept calling me Talcum X.
He wasn't allowed to be there, but we still wanted him because he was creative and we enjoyed his company and his creations. So we called him Talcum X, and he became this guy who contributed all of this stuff. The whole time, who knows if Gavin knew that Talcum X was actually James, who was not allowed to participate in the station anymore.
Yeah, but I moved anyway. I moved to another state. Still doing stuff.
Okay, so
now your thing.
I want to share.
I feel like we cleaned that up.
Okay, we did very nicely. So 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we played a bunch of videos. One of those shows like tonight where we're just filling time. And I played you a video of a bunch of little kids. Remember the little kids that were singing that song, "My Stupid Heart"? Remember? And it was like, catchy as hell.
It's hit the charts, dude.
Damn right, it's hit the charts. My Stupid Heart. as predicted on this show, is gonna be a major hit. Here's the studio version. Ah! Here we go. Drop the bass. This is gonna be in clubs. Bass drop. I'm telling you.
So you think Head Crack and Keynote are getting like pitched this one
No,
in like a mixtape?
No.
Like somebody's like mixing some like
No,
kind of
no,
DJ.
Not him, but
My
Kiss
name's-
FM. Kiss FM's from
Yeah.
Coast to Coast will play the hell out of this song. that's where it's climbing up the charts. It came across my Spotify today as one of the heat seekers, one of like the most played songs.
See, I can see like one of those DJs like putting that hook in there.
Yeah.
And then like throwing some other hip
Called
hop
remixing.
in like
yeah, I
that.
could totally
Yeah.
see a remix of this for a club version. Absolutely, with some like vocal.
That's why I think like Head Crack and Keynote might hear this.
Yeah, that's white. This is white people club music, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but isn't that like part of what you make fun of? Like
nah,
in
they're
your-
they're legit like hardcore.
Yeah, they would
club.
play it maybe as a goof, but
Yeah, they play it as a
play
joke.
with a straight face. Oh my god! I know the guys that are coming up to Head Crack. If you ever hang out with Head Crack in public, it's like, hey, yo, man, I'm MC Bullet Hole, man. You gotta check out my latest joint at the Canyon. You know, it's not this
my.
crap.
You don't want to tell MC Bullet Hole no. You want to be nice,
So you take his CD.
of course.
Yeah,
So
they used to have
all right,
And you,
so
and you
I've
shake
got
that man's
something.
hand and you look MC Bullet Hole in the eye, and then you get the hell out of
two
there.
weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, when I'm in New York City, right? Like we're going up and down Times Square, and like this dude comes up to me. He's like, "Here, man, take my CD, take my CD." And so I got Dom with me, and so he's like, "Man, give it to your son. I'm gonna be famous one day." So like I take it, I hand it to Dom, and then I give him like $20 for his CD. I haven't listened to
How
it.
about that, James?
It's probably good. It's probably real good.
You guys want to play
He
it?
played retail. He paid retail for a street CD.
I was just being nice to the
You are-
guy who was
Yeah.
hustling me.
Don't listen to it. We'll listen to it.
You don't want to
on the show.
listen to it? It says it's got like a weird ass cover. I've got
Of course
it
it
upstairs.
does. It's probably the worst CD you've ever bought, and we need to listen to it cold, just sight unseen on the show.
Well, but since we can't get in trouble
Of course we can't get in trouble. It's not copyrighted.
here,
and
like,
it's
why
no-
don't we play it? Like, see what somebody's giving out.
I agree. I am telling you.
How could I do that? Could I jam it in my computer and play it?
That's true. He's got it on CD.
It's a
do we play
CD. How the hell do I make it work?
How do we play it?
I can play it. Give it to me.
Sorry, send mail.
So I gotta mail it.
Snail mail it to James. It should be there by Monday of next week. And,
Really? That's what technology has come to with a CD?
You could.
You've got to like.
No, you could rip it onto your computer and send me the MP3.
I don't. What computers don't have CD players anymore?
How do I rip it?
Yeah. What kind of computer are you
Like,
using?
what
It's got a
computer I
CD.
got? It's got a CD player.
I have a CD player and I have a CD-ROM on my computer.
You gotta go to Best Buy. You gotta buy something extra. You gotta get like a CD something or other. I don't know.
Look.
Oh, James. Oh, God.
Good though. MC parole officer or whoever. I'm sure he put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, he's probably great. James, got to tell you a funny story about someone who we talk about a lot. You know Ed, right? You know Edzilla. So this is the kind of situation we're just talking about. Edzilla runs Radio Misfits. Emil will probably end up calling Ed to ask him, what's going on? Can I do this with the CD, right? So on Saturday night, we're doing this, kids and dad's night. We're going to watch Scarface, but we can't get the TV to play. So it's like 9 o'clock at night on Saturday. And Emil goes, I'm going to call Ed. Let's see how frustrated we can make him. So we put it on speaker, and Ed helps everyone, but it's just like, he gets upset. Like his voice starts to raise and he snaps at you. So Emil and I just kept asking like ridiculous questions to see how we could, set him off. That was funny.
Oh, it was a good time. He, you know, it's kind of
We
like
couldn't live
what's
without
that?
him. Whatever you say,
What?
preface
Oh
it
no,
with,
you
couldn't
can't live without him. You can't live without him. He's the most nice human, good person that's out there. But there's a part of him when it comes to his IT that what's that Yellowstone? In Yellowstone, they've got that geyser, Old Faithful.
Yeah.
Like he is the version of Old Faithful when it comes to knowing that he's going to go off on you for your lack of IT experience. So the issue was basically why we called him. We couldn't get in because the network that we had was, I stupidly named it the same.
We basically had to call Ed to ask him what our passwords were.
Right.
What they were.
And so
he's magic and would know them.
I didn't know the password, so basically I decided the part of information that I only would have, I should call Ed to see if he could give it to us.
Ed's in the chat room now saying, just do what I say. Just do what I say. The world would be so much better if we just did what I
The problem is he doesn't understand I'm trying, but I'm like in the short bus when it comes to to techie stuff.
Ed, if only people would read the fucking manual.
Nah. All right, that's what YouTube's for you. I'll watch a YouTube video to learn stuff about stuff. All right, let's get out of here. Bye, guys. There goes James. There goes...
You know what I figured out? I can't put the CD in my phone.
No, you can't. All right, we do apologize for the scheduling snafu that occurred this evening. Reid Reker, the original general manager of Live 105.3, will join us. Something obviously came up. He's enthusiastic about participating, so we look forward to getting him in the hot seat, as they say. Thank you to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow at noon, high noon, 12 p.m., hot topics, current events, headlines, all that stuff. And that'll do it. That'll do it. All right, bye, everybody. Have a great night. Sleep well. See you tomorrow at noon, right here. High noon with me, Pugs Brown, on a Radio Misfits podcast platform, RadioMisfits.com.